When my co-host Tammy Murray and I discussed Survivorman Bigfoot with Bigfoot researcher Kathy Strain, we were in for a big surprise. Our show was originally 2 hours long, so we had to break it up into 2 webcasts. One being about Les Stroud and Todd Standing's Brokeback Bigfoot Mountain Adventures, and the other about Kathy Strain, her history, research, and, more importantly, her Bigfoot sighting. Who is Kathy Strain? Does she want a Bigfoot shot for study? Or is she one of those friends of the force people who think Bigfoot is your friend? Well, you are in for one hell of an amazing After Hours with Rictor tonight. It's our best show. For real. I'm not joking.
Squatch.
Well, good evening, everyone. This is another After Hours with Rictor. I'm your host. My name is Rictor Riolo.
Rictor!
What?
Leave him alone!
Now we got Rictor going. We're going to have to hear about it all night. That's a bunch of screaming memes out there, and that's the scoop that has been reported so far.
Well, when you don't believe in Bigfoot, everything you see that might be one is something else.
Is this thing on? Am I muted? Can you hear me? Hello?
My question is, why do you think Bigfoot is real?
Tonight on After Hours, we have an author, a Bigfoot researcher, an archaeologist, a mother of 2, a wife, my personal Obi-Wan Kenobi in Bigfooting, and a TV star herself because of MONSTERQUEST and other television shows. We have Kathy Strain, ladies and gentlemen.
Yay! Kathy!
Oh, thank you.
So, MONSTERQUEST, we'll talk about that real quick.
My goal is to make sure whatever we're doing is scientific. We find any kind of evidence that we're collecting it in a scientific manner so it can be analyzed and not contaminated, such as DNA or hair or, you know, apple bites that might be preserved that shows us teeth, those kinds of things.
The episode, the all-girl team, you know, if it was me, I would have probably called that, if I had come up with that MONSTERQUEST episode, I would have probably called it, like, The Bitches of Bigfoot. I mean, you know, you've got Monica Rollins and those 2 other girls that I can't remember their names, and then we have Kathy Strain, and you're like the den mother, you know, so you were like keeping all those girls in check. Oh wait, Melissa Hovey. Now how can I forget Melissa Hovey? All right, so moving on.
Well,
okay.
I mean, to be fair, we all have pretty strong personalities, and
oh, I know.
I have a lot of experience in the field, and so it was quite interesting.
I know all about the drama that happened too on that show you were with those girls. So, yay! You came out on top.
Would you say that it was a hormone-rich environment?
No, not necessarily. I think it was more or less a little bit of frustration of why we were there and what we were there to accomplish. And, you know, I'm a very professional person, and I kind of expected a certain level of things, and it really wasn't what was given us. We had some activity one night that should have been documented, but because the cameraman went to bed, you know, at 8 o'clock, there was no cameraman there when all this activity was happening, and so it was kind of very disappointing in that sense of having the ability to record rock throws and our reaction to it, and you know, and when you do these shows, and you know, Rictor, they film hundreds of hours and they reduce it down to like this little tiny little thing, and you're like, why did you make that cut versus this cut where it was an intelligent conversation or event that happened? And so, you know, it's a little frustrating sometimes, and that's why I like I was much more happy with how the second episode of Monster Quest that we did, Native People and their traditional beliefs, how that turned out, because I had a lot more control over how it was presented, and they did exactly what I wanted to do and how it was presented. So I felt like that was a true representation of how we filmed it and how it was shown on television.
You know, I miss Monster Quest. Have you heard any talk, gossip? Is there any chance of it coming back?
No. No chance.
No. Bummer.
You have recently posted a picture of I guess, a archaeology site that is a dump site, a Native American dump site, like trash and glass and stuff, right?
It'd be associated with white people. So.
Oh, okay. But it's like old.
Yes, it's old. It's about, I would guess, somewhere around 60 to 75 years old.
Wow.
Correct.
And so have you found any interesting artifacts in there?
Oh, yeah, we did. We found the rim fire, which is what you're referring to, burned 257,000 acres in Northern California. It's, I believe, the third largest fire in California history. And it burned an enormous amount of historic, which when we use the term historic, we mean modern, not modern, but we mean, I don't want to use the word white, but it's essentially immigrant culture that came to California during the gold rush. And so when we use the word prehistoric, we mean Native American. And so this particular picture that I posted was of a dump associated with a logging camp associated with the West Side Lumber Company, and they used to live out on the landscape and eat and do everything there while they were doing what they're doing, and this is where they disposed of all their trash. And so it's very interesting because what that trash can tell us is, you know, were there any women there? Were there any children there? What kind of food were they eating? Was it nutritious? Did they care about flavor? Was there any ethnicity? You know, if we find some Chinese wear or any kind of maybe Hispanic culture stuff associated with that. So we were able to record that dump, and in the end we kind of concluded that it was more family oriented stuff that we were seeing, small groupings versus a 400 people type industrial sized food cans that are like, you know, this big and have, you know, hundreds of calories in it. It was all what you'd find in your cabinet that was disposed there.
Now, how many years ago were they living there?
We think the camp was started in 1950. Is that better?
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
1950. You being the Bigfoot researcher, if someone would have found unusual burned skeletons, would they have come to you about it?
Yes. Since I'm the head archaeologist of the entire national forest, they are required to come to me if they find unusual remains, and because I'm trained to identify human remains or other animal remains, and so far we've had none of that.
Wow. And what if you had found something? Would you? What?
Well, I'd go and examine it, and I'd use my education to see if it was human, and I would really hope it wasn't. But if it was something that resembled humans, but clearly wasn't, oh man, oh yeah, I'd collect it and go for it.
Wow.
Pretty exciting.
Kathy Strain would be the winner of the $10 million Bigfoot bounty.
Yeah. Kathy, if I find a Bigfoot body, I'm calling you first.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not screwing around with these other jerks.
Are you writing another book at the moment?
You know, I'm not. I'm so busy with rimfire, what we call it rimfire recovery. I just don't even have 2 minutes in a day to do anything else. I mean, it's just meetings after meetings and decisions after decisions, and because a lot of the authority that we have to deal with the sites, I have to be the person making the decision and signing everything, and so it's just been constant that since August. But I have material enough for another book. I just haven't had any time to put it together in a way I would be happy with.
Now, your book, Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters, it's available on Amazon.com. I personally have a copy. I brought it with me while I was on Bigfoot Bounty, and it was a wealth of information of all the different Native American tribes and their thoughts and stories and cultural perspectives on what Bigfoot could be and things that weren't not necessarily Bigfoot oriented. You know what I mean? So that was, what was your motivation for writing that, putting it all together?
You know, I became a Bigfoot enthusiast, I guess, when I was really young. I saw Legend of Boggy Creek when I was a young girl, and it had a heavy influence on me. I just fell in love with this whole passionate, you know, Bigfoot thing, and so I kind of went down this road of, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. So I asked my teacher when I was about 5th grade, I think, you know, how can I study Bigfoot? And Bigfoot was pretty, you know, well known, so she didn't, you know, mock me or anything. And she said, you probably have to be an anthropologist. And so I just set my mind, okay, that's what I'm going to do, is be an anthropologist. And I figured it out, you know, that I couldn't make money studying Bigfoot. But once I got into anthropology, it was just such a natural fit with me. And I was very fortunate to be the archaeologist for the Sequoia National Forest and 2 districts that surround the Tule River Indian Reservation, where the hairy man pictographs are. And I did archaeology for them as a just a government to government, you know, trade-off. And they were the elders. I worked a lot with the elders, and they were just so gracious. And at first, when we started talking, they were like, "Oh, you believe that Bigfoot exists?" And they were like, "We've never met a non-native person who believes in Bigfoot and takes this seriously and respects what we think. So we're going to give you some traditional knowledge about what Bigfoot is to us." And I was like, "Oh, this is fantastic." And so they imparted to me a lot of information about what their traditional beliefs were, what the hairy man pictographs represented. And I held on to that for a very long time, not sure what to do with it. You know, do you share that with the public? It was traditional knowledge. It was given to me privately. And anyway, that kind of what spawned it. It was like, well, clearly if this tribe believes in Bigfoot and has stories, other tribes must believe in that. And I just started gathering all these stories in one place. And I was kind of, you know, concentrated just on the west, you know, coast, because I really didn't think much of the rest of the United States. My bad. But then Craig WOOLHEATER of the TBRC at the time asked me to do the same thing for eastern states, for Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma. And when I dove into that, I went, whoa, I've been neglecting a lot of cultural knowledge from other parts of the United States based on my bias on the Pacific Northwest. And so once I dove into that, I went, well, what does the East have to say? What does Canada have to say? And I just started, I had this massive amount. I mean, you should see my bookcase. I don't know if you can see it here, but that's, you know, I have hundreds of bookcases here that are filled with books and research material and all this stuff that I've gathered over this time. And it just kind of came together. And then I started going through museum archives of unpublished material that people had gathered but didn't want to make public because they didn't want to have people talk about this big, hairy, wild thing in the woods because they were afraid of it. So
since you had quite a bit of experience, with Native American people, more so than me, because my only experience is with the 2 giants that were on Bigfoot Bounty, David and Daniel Greene, and they taught me quite a bit. The first hunt that we were a part of in those lava beds up there in Washington by Mount Adams, we were bordered next to an Indian reservation, and that's where the quote-unquote sounds of a Sasquatch were coming from. And I wondered, do you think Native American tribes out there on Indian reservations, do you think the Sasquatch knows they're safe within certain areas? What are your thoughts on that? Because there's a follow-up to this. When we were filming up by Yakima, the real cool stuff was happening right next door to the Yakima Indian Reservation, and we couldn't go over there because of our boundary, our border. So that was like, okay, that's 2 things that makes me think, okay, some weird stuff's happening, and it's happening over here on the Indian reservation. Could the Native Americans be messing with us? Of course. Could it be our production company messing with us? Of course. Could it be a possible Sasquatch hanging out in a protective area, protective zone? Of course. It could be a lot of things, you know? So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think they know they're, you know, safe in these areas?
I think there's a long history of Native Americans and Bigfoot contact. I mean, even most tribes will tell you that they believe them to be another kind of people, and they just kind of had this neutral agreement that this spot over here is yours, but this spot over here is ours, and so we'll gather berries here, and you can do your thing over there, but, you know, try to keep separate from each other in the sense of not, you know, having conflict as much as possible. And so I think as you know, at least in California, as immigrants spread from the east and came into California through and started taking over Indian land and started, you know, the concept of reservations and set-asides for Native people, I think that's a natural kind of thing that would have evolved, is because Native people would never in a million years consider killing a Bigfoot. That would just doom their souls to oblivion. There's no way that would ever happen. And so I think over time it would evolve to Bigfoot's knowing where their safe zones are, is that, oh, we can hang over here when the pressure's heavy over here, because a lot of that reservation land is wooded. It's the same terrain they would use any place else, but it's a safety zone. And so, yeah, I would think that that's something they would learn over time. Any animal over time is going to learn. You know, deer know that they can hang out, at least in these parts, in somebody's front yard and graze their little grass all they want to, and they're safe and nobody can do anything about it because it's not hunting season. You can't shoot a deer within 200 feet of another home, and they learn it and they go, oh, we're safe here. So, I mean, if deer can learn that, anything can learn that.
Kathy, after all of the information that the Native Americans have shared with you and their beliefs, where do you stand on, you know, exactly what Bigfoot is? Do you think, is it ape-like, more human-like, wild man? Where
interdimensional trans?
Yeah, I mean, what is? You've got a focal point now after hearing all of these different stories from the Native Americans, and that's really the root of the Bigfoot folklore and legend. And a lot of the you know, witness accounts come from the Native Americans. So, you know,
what is Bigfoot?
What is it? Yeah. Why do you believe Bigfoot is real? That's my standard question.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but do you know I've seen them?
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do they look like the Les Stroud puppets?
Hell no. How do I put this? Okay, so I don't want to drag this out, but in 2012, I was in Oklahoma in an area known as Area X that is managed, well, not managed, but used by at the old days, TBRC, now is NAWAC, and I'm a member of the group. They first, before I became a member, they asked us Bob and I, to come there and assess what they had there. And so we went, and we were there for a week, and we were, it's a very long story that's kind of drawn out, but essentially, we were sitting around at 6 o'clock in the evening. It was totally daylight. It was May, so we had all kinds of light. There was no issues with shadows or anything else. Essentially, we had a lot of activity that day. We had some rock throws and other stuff going on that was potentially Bigfoot related. And we're sitting around the front of this cabin when we start hearing some footsteps. And we're listening, we're going, well, we kind of hear some footsteps. And I'm at the perfect angle of being able to see this coming at us. And I see a big Bigfoot and a little Bigfoot, so, you know, kind of like this, coming at us. They're walking right at us. And they're following. Oh, great look, Rictor. That was a great look.
Oh, we're supposed to.
Anyway,
so wait, how far are they from you? How many yards?
Well, let me finish the story so you know, because they started further away and then we're getting closer at the time. So they're let me see if I can get my fingers in this here. How do I do this? Okay, so they're walking like this towards us, and it looked like the big one was trying to find a path up this steep hill that is behind this cabin. Like, it kept going, oh, come on, follow me up this cabin, and the little one was like, oh no, I want to get closer. And so it just wasn't paying attention to what I would call mama, you know. It was like the little one wanted to get closer to us without realizing that we had a visual on them at all. And there was this little shed that probably was where they were headed to, or the baby was headed to get a better look at us. And so me, because I'm me, jump out of my chair and I go, there they are, and I ran at them. And so,
right
Girl, good for you.
I would do the same thing.
Dang,
so,
finally.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, ah, you know, and so that is like twofold in the sense of what that caused. In the sense, they go, oh crap, you know, we're seen, and they go, the big one goes, boom, up that side of the hill that was like this kind of slope, and I kept my eyes on the big one because I knew I only had so much time to record information and understand what I was seeing, and so I really did not focus on the little one at all because the bigger one had more body mass, and I knew that I could get more detail. But so the first one goes up this hillside like that, like he was pulled up a bungee cord. I've never seen anything in my life move like that. And the second one was right behind it going up.
So do you think because they move so fast, people interpret that as interdimensional doorsteps or something?
If I was somebody who believed in ghosts, I would have thought I saw a ghost. That's how fast they were. It was stunning. And the unfortunate part of it was we had a motion detector camera aimed right at them, and all it got was my butt. So, because I ran right in front of it.
So you saw their faces?
I saw the big one's face. I saw its body shape, its build. I saw everything about it, and so they're not human.
Patterson Gimlin, was
Looks
it like
very
that?
very much like Patterson Gimlin. Same thick, you know, torso. Nobody can see my hands. I always feel like I'm talking with my hands. But anyway, it was very thick-bodied, very large, very heavy, but muscle. It was not fat at all. It was muscle, and it moved with strength and determination. And once I had jumped up and said, there they are, it no longer was worried about what the younger one was going to do. It obviously knew it was going to follow them up the hill, and it made it to this, you know, what a contour line is, where you can, you know, a contour line on a mountain is an even step where you can walk across something evenly, and it made it up to this contour line above our heads, and then was very casual about walking that line. And another member, there was 5 of us there at the time, and 4 of us saw it, and the other member was just in the wrong spot to be able to see it. So 4 of us all saw the same thing, including my husband Bob.
If you had Justin SMEJA with you, and he had a loaded rifle, would he have been able to have killed it like he says he killed? Was he that close?
No.
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 Okay.
And they were about roughly in as close as they got, and me running at it, I would say it was about no more than 100 yards. So no, he could not, not in a million years, been able to shoot that.
The drawings that have been rendered from Justin SMEJA's descriptions, would you say that they are fairly accurate as far as based on what you saw?
No.
More like the
his detailed description of the big one doesn't match any other Bigfoot. He said it was tall and lanky. It wasn't big and muscular, you know.
Well, in this area of Area X, we've actually, not me personally, but other people have seen other kinds, other Bigfoots, and just like humans, you know, gorillas and chimps and stuff all have different body builds. Right. So it wouldn't surprise me if you had a skinny, lanky one or a thick one. Maybe it was, I would suspect the younger they are, the lankier they are, and they start putting on the muscles and the girth as they get older. I'm not concerned with that. It's the details of the face that There's nothing human about their face at all. I mean, it's hair covered. They don't have any sclera around their eyes. There's nothing about them that appears to be human. I mean, you wouldn't, outside the fact they walk upright, that's the only thing you got human going on there. And it's just because we as a human race associate bipedalism with something being in our evolutionary process. And so they don't look anything about it. And you know, the drawing is not accurate in my opinion.
From what I've read and studied, because I've been following Bigfoot my entire life, they have a flat face, dark black eyes, a human-shaped nose that's flat, thin lips, and the sloping forehead and the sagittarial crest. Is that pretty much common with what you saw, or what was different?
Everything but the sagittal crest. I mean, it wasn't. I didn't see anything that would tell me it was had a point. You know, a ridge line.
A cone?
But that might just be a detail that I couldn't see. So that a sagittal crest is, you know, that it would make it pointed like this, right. And I didn't see anything that looked like that. But it didn't mean it didn't have it. I just didn't notice it in my observation. So
You never felt scared when you saw this, intimidated?
Nope.
Did you smell that?
No, I didn't smell anything. I was intimidated very much by its speed, and I'm gonna admit I had an absolute meltdown. Because this is something I've studied for many years, and here I just witnessed exactly what I saw, and I had a very hard time because at first I couldn't comprehend that there was two of them, and I was just stuttering, and I ended up having, we had the guy who didn't see anything was videotaping what the experience was, and he was asking it, and I just had the hardest time of even expressing what it is that I had seen, and I finally, and I'm, you know, don't normally cuss, but I had an absolute meltdown where I just let out every cuss word I could even think of, screaming at the hillside until I could just calm down and just go, okay, this is what happened. Oh, yeah, there was two of them. Oh, yeah, there was a big one and a little one, and this is what happened. Because I just couldn't process it. It was like, you know, having a SWAT team come in on your house and you're trying to why is there a SWAT team in my house? And it was just so shocking to me. Even though I went there to do it, to see that, it still didn't want to register, you know, in my brain. And I tried to make sense out of it, all I could do. And then I thought, you know, there's no way that was a bear. There's no way that was anything else. You know, I've seen bears further away, 300 yards, football fields away, and been able to go, oh yeah, that's a bear, because I've seen every wildlife that we've got in North America. So it was just one of those moments of a meltdown. And then we had all kinds of other activity that entire week. We had rock throws. I heard what I would call some gibberish, kind of yelling kind of thing. And then last year in 2013, my husband went back, Bob, spent 3 weeks by himself without me going. I kept the home fires going here, and then I went back as well for 3 weeks by myself with some other individuals, and it was quite the experience. I mean, we're going to go
Oklahoma.
back again.
Tammy, it's in your backyard.
That place, Oklahoma, is trying to kill you all the time. Have you ever noticed that? He's trying to kill you. Snakes are trying to kill you. Everything's trying to kill you. And there's no reasonable reason for me to want to go there when I'm in California and I have this, but this place really is the place to go to study behavior. And I'm an anthropologist, and I study behavior. And so I've gained a lot of knowledge, and we're going to go back again this year in order to continue that study for my understanding of... Go ahead.
Kathy, when you return, promise me you will keep a camera with you on you at all times.
I had a camera on me at all times.
Recording.
But when you're running at them, and
right.
You know,
a GoPro, girl. You have a GoPro to put on your head?
They're available, but they actually give you a huge headache. And I don't know if you've ever tried to wear one. You know, they cut your circulation off.
If you had an HD camera with you and you were recording when you were running towards them, do you think you would have had something better than the Patterson-Gimlin footage?
No.
Oh.
I think I wouldn't have been able to catch them in there. And to be honest, at that time, having my first experience, I'm glad I didn't try to do that. I'm glad I just experienced it, got all the detail I could, and then they were gone. You know, because that was worth it in my mind.
Did you take measurements?
Oh yeah, we took measurements. It's all very scientific.
Okay.
About we
Is this your second book? This is your second book, Kathy. For real.
Well, it might be. It might be
Should
at some point. I mean, I have detailed. I should pull my journals out. I've got several journals filled of observations of what I've noticed when rock throws have happened. What are the patterns? What am I seeing here? And comparing them to known ape behavior. A long answer to a short question is no. They're not human. They exhibit all their behavior exhibits ape behavior. How they react to humans, how they do everything is classic Jane Goodall chimp behavior. That if anybody would read that, they would know exactly what to expect. And it's this whole, and I'm going to go on and just say exactly what I think, but this whole they can talk to you in your mind, they're sports people stuff, come on. That it's the same thing we do with Disney characters. You're trying to make animals your friend by giving them characteristics that is gentle and stuff, because it's an emotional attachment. It's not a reasonable attachment, because none of those things are true. And I guarantee you 110% a Bigfoot will kill you before he cares anything about, oh, but I'm just trying to be friends with you. I mean, it's like trying to make friends with a bear. They don't have emotions like that. And stop trying to attribute that to them. I blame it on Disney. I totally blame it on Disney.
Kathy,
none of this would have happened without them.
Are you telling me that you would not be able to, like fall asleep or have a intimate experience with a Bigfoot, like some people have claimed?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I've been there 4 weeks, and we have other stuff that happened here in California that, I've seen footprints, I've been yelled at, howled at. I mean, I've had it all, and I've got recordings of all these howls that I've been yelled at. I've given them every opportunity to put any kind of thing they want to in my head, welcomed it, opened myself up, say, if you want to talk to me, I'm here, here you go. I had a gun on my hip the day I saw those two. Okay, I've had a gun on my hip every time I've been in Area X, just because, of everything else that is in there. Not one time did that deter them from interacting with us. Not one time did they offer any kind of mind speak into my head. And so it's absolutely, it is the Disney effect of wanting Bigfoot desperately. To be human.
Those desperate Disney attributes people put on Bigfoot, I think, harms the study of Sasquatch. Mind speak, the interdimensional doorways that Tammy had to listen to from Dave Paulides.
Don't get me started.
And I think it also, for them, I mean, I'm not going to be harsh. I mean, we are who we are as human beings, and you have to look at, Native Americans looked at Bigfoot through the window of being Native Americans. They weren't Native Americans are not scientists, and so when they view another bipedal thing that looks like them, that's their brother. That is a normal.
Okay, they're part of the natural universe, natural environment that the Native Americans associated them with. I mean, that was part of their world. They weren't, superpowers. There was no flying orbs and magical spiritual mind speak saying they're the watchers of man, the descendants of Cain, things like that.
Yeah.
I have to say, Kathy, that is one of the best descriptions of an encounter. Very detailed. I have a lot of respect for you and what you're doing at Area X in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I concur. And you need to take Tammy with you to Area X.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's plenty. It's definitely an intimidating place in the sense of, the vines and everything is trying to kill you, and you're hiking out, and of course the heat and stuff. But yeah, it's I'm about science, and the answer is science. And so when you try to these people who are saying they have an intimate relationship with in their minds with Bigfoot it's not scientific. Why would you attribute a characteristic to Bigfoot that no other animal has?
And let's back it up about 75, 80 years. Albert Ostman, Fred Beck. Let's talk about their encounters. Any of that weird weird stuff going on? No.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, it's all modern, and it's a desire to be. And I'm not complaining about anybody. Everybody has the right to believe what they want to believe. It's just it's not where we should be focusing, and we shouldn't be doing that. That forest friend stuff is extremely dangerous, and I'm afraid that it's going to get somebody killed one day. It's like, oh, I can pet the bear, and the bear's going to let me pet them, and it's like the bear goes, whoa, and you're dead, you know. Yeah, don't hug it, because there's no point in hugging it, because it's going to kill you, because they're not our friends. They may be curious about us just like we're curious about them, but there's never going to be a relationship there. And so anyway, so it's a little bit much.
We've talked to a lot of people in the past 2 years in regards to Bigfoot about their experiences and sightings, and Kathy, I believe you 110%.
Me too. This is really good. This is some good shit. Do you come in the summer down here? That's why Oklahoma's trying to kill you. It doesn't try and kill you half as bad in the fall or the winter. Well, sometimes in the winter. It just sucks here, okay?
Yeah, it is the summer, and it was really kind of interesting that I took a hike, and it was, you know, it's tough. Yeah, I was away from my husband for 6 weeks. You know, we were that dedicated. For him to go for 3 weeks, he was home just briefly before I left. And you know, why would I choose to do that, be away from my children and my home and my job, you know, for 3 weeks if I really didn't believe that there was something there? That's a lot of dedication. And there by myself without my support system. You know, I had different people in different weeks. And I remember we did a hike out. It was I was there in June. Bob did April and May, and that one, that's fine. Did a hike out to see this one particular area, and it wasn't even that far. I mean, I'm a hiker. I do stuff all the time. And by the time I got back, I was so covered in sweat, I couldn't even function. I was like, I couldn't even pull my jeans off. It was just like, what in the world? It was just like, what am I doing here? You know. So,
okay, I got a couple questions about
just the humidity.
Got a couple questions.
Sure.
Your 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Do they think that their parents are crazy?
No.
They believe too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your husband. Who is he? What is he about? What TV shows has he been on? Et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, my husband is Bob Strain, who is the most handsome thing I've ever seen in my entire life. He is my entire world besides my children. And handsome. He's got a great voice too. Yeah. And he is also a Bigfooter. He saw a Bigfoot in 1974. A long time ago. He's a hunter, and he was out hunting and saw what he believed to be a Bigfoot on a adjacent hillside to where he was hunting. He then had some experiences later on in this general Sonora area, which was, you know, quite a coincidence in the sense that he didn't live here, but I did. And we met in 2003 at a Bigfoot conference. And this is a fabulous story. If you want to hear this story,
okay.
I took at that time I was with the BFRO, and my territory, I guess you're going to use the word territory, was too big for me. And there was so much going up at Lake Tahoe. I was considering needing other people to help me out with research. So I invited Bob, Tom Yamarone, and a few other people that will not be mentioned to my spot in Lake Tahoe, which is where the Tahoe Scream was recorded. Bob was on Finding Bigfoot recently about that Tahoe Scream. You know, it's a very famous area. And so I had warned everybody in advance. I said, okay, we're going to call blast, and we're going to get a response. So just expect it. And I don't think they believed me at all. And so, and my best friend Mantra Freitas was there as well. And we had, this was our area that we had been working for some time. So we did the call blast, and we had an immediate response. And just that Ohio kind of, and it was very, very, very close. Essentially, everybody had a meltdown and hit the ground. And I look over at Bob, and Bob is leaning against his truck with his arms crossed across his chest. He went, yeah, okay. And I was like, dude, you're cool. You can keep your cool. And he was like that the entire time. He was like just a man of coolness. Of it wasn't going to rattle him. He wasn't going to overreact. And then that's what I thought, well, wow, maybe this guy's a keeper. So anyway, it's a great story because it was, I think, a lot of people's first experiences with that type of thing. What?
Nothing. That was my speaker thing. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Anyway, so that's a cool story. But yeah, so he's a Bigfooter. He's my partner in crime, and we spend months out of the year Bigfooting. We typically have an annual Bigfoot expedition that we invite people to, and usually in July up here. Don't know how that's going to work this year, but
if you have it, can I come?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I want to come too.
Sure.
Okay. I want to play for you what I heard up in Washington.
Okay.
That was not played on Bounty.
Oh.
So this is what I heard. Now, what I heard was much longer than what has recorded here in the BFRO sound page. So okay, I'm putting the little speaker here. Okay, that's what I heard from that Indian reservation that was right next door to us at the lava beds. Cliff Brackman and I have talked about this, and he's heard stories that coyotes can make that sound too. What are your thoughts on that?
No, that's not a coyote. I've been I've been in every state of the United States except for, that little pinched area up there by New York City. My family, why I am who I am is we always traveled, spent weeks on the road going to national parks and national forests. I've heard coyotes in every way, shape, and form. That's not a coyote. I don't care what anybody says.
I want to agree with you with this because the length was much bigger in the chest lung capacity than a human being, and humans have bigger lungs than coyotes. And this, what we heard, Dax and myself, our camera guy and the audio guy, it was amazing. And pitch black, middle of nowhere, and it's getting louder and coming closer. And then we had to wrap up and go because the union says cameramen are done by midnight. And we were like, no, we want to stay. It was like, oh my gosh, for the first hunt, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And you have, quote unquote, lifelong Bigfooters, elitists, egotistical, whatever they are, judging me. You're not a Bigfooter. You only did it on a TV show. Well, you know what? Look what I heard. And look what, you could be a Bigfooter 10 minutes. You could be a Bigfooter 55 years. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just luck.
Yeah, it's being in the right place at the right time. And coyotes can, definitely there's times when coyotes could be howling and it ricochet off of canyon walls, but they're not going to lengthen that vocalization. They're going to be yips or howls on top of howls on top of howls, and you're going to be, with a very good ear, be able to hear, end, start, end, start. And so what Bigfoots do is so long and drawn out, a coyote can't produce that. And so, yeah, that's not a coyote. Was that the Squamish?
Yeah, and there's two different Washington recordings there on the BFRO, and I was in Washington when I heard what I heard back in the end of June. Oh, gosh. I still have my MP3 recorder, and I have not deleted any files.
So what you're saying is that was the sound of a Sasquatch.
It was a sound, it was sound of it. That's not a normal forest animal, correct?
Awesome.
And what they played, unfortunately, on the television wasn't that at all. Yeah.
And then, of course, That's the sound of a Sasquatch. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to listen to like, what was that? What? And so that's too bad that they didn't use something, but they don't own the rights to that recording, so that's why they can't use it. So
you know, I've heard Tammy yell before. She can duplicate it.
Not exactly. Well, Kathy, let me ask you this: in Area X, which I am assuming is in.
I'm gonna bleep you out, Tammy.
Well, the reason why I mention that is because is our most heavily forested. I mean, like real forest and mountainous areas of Oklahoma. Okay. And there is a huge influx of people going down there and going Bigfooting in the last several years. Would you agree with that? And I was just talking to a guy that lives down in that area, and I live in central Oklahoma. So it's a little bit of a trip for me to get down there and go squatching for any length of time, but it's well worth it. Time is well worth it spent down there. But he said that you go out and the squatchers are all over the place doing call blasting, and they're hearing each other's calls. Are you running into any problems with that?
No, where Area X is on private property. It's a good-sized piece of private property, and actually, I don't know that I've ever heard any call blasting at all there or any vocalizations at all. And so, what the experience mostly is visuals. We've had many visuals. We've had rock throws. We've had close encounters, that type of thing with seeing figures on the property with night vision and thermal. And so, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the NAWAC is a pro-science organization. So we are about proving that the species exists through obtaining a specimen. Just one specimen, not hundreds, one. We only need the one. And as a scientist, I support that because as an archaeologist, we collect things many times to prove existence of an archaeological site or the existence of something.
So I got to interrupt. Specimen,
Sure.
Kind of vague.
It means that we're out to make sure we shoot a Bigfoot and collect its body or portions of that body to bring back to science to study. We'll never sell any piece or hair or...
Okay. Hey, Justin, we got a job for you.
No. Sorry. We actually have experienced people who are ethical and moral and are not out to torture anything. It will be absolutely as humane as possible and scientifically studied, absolutely 100%, with nothing sold at all. It's given to universities to sell. We have a plan in place of how to accomplish this so that there never has to be another specimen taken. This is a one-time deal. And so, it's not about money. It's not about fame. Whoever actually accomplishes this, you will never know their name because this is not about us. This is about conserving the species for the future, and this is the way to do it. And so, so having said that, we are heavily armed in Area X at all times. Everybody's heavily armed. And so, I've heard people say, well, we suspect hoaxers may be out there. Well, then they're putting their lives in a whole lot of danger because at any time when I was running at the two that I saw, I could have pulled my gun and at least shot, and something a little slower would have gotten shot. I'm a pretty good aim, or anybody else who was with me at that time. And so we have not ran. I've never seen anybody. There's no evidence. I've hiked the entire piece of property. I can't see any evidence of other humans having been on the property. And there's no trash that's out out there or anything like that. Any kind of junk that you might want to consider, human related is very tight knit to where it is that we're staying. And so, I've never even been approached by anybody in that particular area when we have to go in to get supplies or anything else that would suspect that.
I'm volunteering Tammy because she is heavily armed at all times.
Yes, I'm ready for Bigfoot or zombies.
Now, I've only gone shooting once, and that was out with Justin Sman and Sean Evidence. We all went shooting up by Auburn. Justin's grandfather has a tremendous amount of property, and I've always been the person that's like, oh, no kill, no kill. But when you're holding a rifle or a shotgun, and I said to Justin, if a Bigfoot were to run in front of me right now, blam, 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 blam. I mean, I would take it out. And I sound like the biggest hypocrite because I've been like, oh, no kill. You know, I mean, you do not know how you're going to react until you're in that kind of a situation.
Well, you know, again, it's an emotional issue. I mean, if you view Bigfoot as being human, then you view taking a specimen as being equivalent to taking a human being. Murder. And it's such an emotional issue. And it's like, okay, so you're willing, and just look at this from my perspective, you're willing to give up every Bigfoot, to have all their habitat encroached upon and depleted, because that's what humans do. We cut trees, we encroach on mountainous land, that's our nature. You're willing to let the species go to where they can't be a viable breeding species, as opposed to getting one. That's what you're willing to do. And so, and when you kind of put it that way, I think it gives a different perspective. Is, well, no, I would like the species to survive. Okay, so how do you propose helping that species survive if the United States of America does not recognize that species as being real? You can't have it both ways. Well, he talks in my mind and tells me he's real. Okay, that's not evidence. That's personal feelings and emotions. We don't make protection laws on your emotions. We make it on facts. And so I always want to say that to people. By your opinion that you are no kill, you are dooming the species to be extinct. So good for you.
In Z formation.
The government, if you were to actually get this specimen, don't you think that the government would intervene?
The government would participate. The NAWAC has measures in place in order how to make this happen, to safely get a specimen back to where the research would be occurring, and then how to release that information in a professional, non what do we call this? Tabloid manner, and have the proper officials in place that there would be no way to deny that this event had happened. And so when you put a lot of smart people together, they come up with really smart ideas. And so that's the good thing about this. And you will never see anything like what... Never in a million years.
That's going to be bleeped out right there. We do not say his name.
Oh, okay.
It's like Voldemort.
Well, it's not about commercialism. Nobody's here to make fame or fortune or anything off of this. I mean, you respect the life. It's still a life. It's not a human life. It's an animal life, and we respect it in order to accomplish a greater goal, conservation. And so that's what I wish more people would see about what the organization is, because it's not emotional. It's scientific. And when you go the science route and stop leading with your heart, that's how good things get accomplished.
Now, is there a website for this organization?
Yes, it is. You can go to woodape.org and visit them. And you can become a supporting member if you want to, because we don't ask for, the organization is funded through donations and member dues. And that's how we accomplish our things. We pay our own way to go to Oklahoma each way, you know, so it's money coming out of our pockets. And that's a long drive from California to Oklahoma. It's pretty, though. And so, but we're paying that because we're dedicated and we believe in them. And all the members drive long distances to get there. I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but Oklahoma's kind of got long roads.
Yes. And there's nothing down there. I mean, it's hard to even find a Walmart down in that part of the state.
Yes, or find a place to eat, yes.
Melissa Win-Adair, one of the Bigfoot chicks. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She lives in Georgia, and she is acquainted with Rob Godet, and they have their Team Squatch. What is it?
Unlimited.
That's it, yeah. And they got Yeti Confetti and Real or Not Real, and they have Shane Bradbury doing webcasts with them, and they're a lot of fun. Rob Godet takes it to a whole different level. He believes that the Dog Man is real and that it's like a werewolf type of creature. Have you heard or seen any evidence that could possibly back that up?
Again, this is why, and I don't mean to come off like I'm not a snob, I'm not a elitist in any way, shape, or form, but in order to understand culture and how Native Americans come up with stories or modern culture comes up with stories, you have to know the whole. You can't have these little bits and pieces that don't tell you any information. Every description I've heard of Dogman is Bigfoot.
No, he has those impressive photos, though, the 7 shoots. Have you seen it? It's got like a baboon face, and it's like holding a pig or something.
You know what? Why would we think that there isn't diversity within a species? A species is going to have diversity of facial features, body types, arm length. I mean, humans have that diversity. Deers have that diversity. Everything has diversity in characteristics of appearance. And so there's no reason to suspect that, well, evolutionary-wise, what is the benefit of a species evolving to be bipedal and have a dog-like face? What does that give them? What does the snout give you evolutionary-wise to be an advantage? Everything we have as humans is an advantage over another species, and that's why we developed it. And so a dog face, canines, is that really, I mean, is that what the advantage is? And so when you really dive deeper into those, when the descriptions, they're Bigfoot. It's clearly Bigfoot, and they just, maybe missaw a feature, but it's the same thing.
Now, Lou Diamond Phillips, that actor, I saw him personally in an airport, LAX, quite a few years ago, and when I first saw him, he was like maybe 4 feet in front of me. I immediately thought Neanderthal. The reason why I say that is because of the deep brow he has and the sloping head. Movies and TV don't really show you. Well, I'm not being mean. I'm not being a bitch. I'm serious. I thought, oh my God, Neanderthals and humans totally got it on 30,000 years ago. That's why there's no more Neanderthals. Now, scientists are saying that, there's Neanderthal DNA in humans. There's this 4%, blah, blah, blah. We had Dr. Todd Disotell on After Hours talking about this. I mean, I'm thinking Lou Diamond Phillips needs to get his DNA tested. I'm not joking. I'm serious. Look at that Russian boxer guy, NIKOLAI VALUEV. He's like this big, giant, human-looking Bigfoot with the sloping head and the deep. That's what Lou Diamond Phillips kind of looked like in person, but smaller. So of course, what I'm getting at is the diversity that you're talking about in a species that's evident in humans. I've seen women in my restaurant with snouts like dogs. Just this giant jaw and just sticks out more. Granted, they're a little bit more ethnic and they're not Caucasian, but they're...
You're killing me, Rictor.
Maybe Hispanic. I'm not...
No,
wait, girl, look at some of those pictures in your book.
That's
oh my God, your Giants and Cannibals book. I mean, some of those girls in there. Whoa. I wouldn't know if they were human. They might be Native American.
Well, and that's a true thing. I mean, I always use, unfortunately, the Walmart comparison. Go to Walmart on a Saturday. See human diversity right there. I mean, because it truly is. But yeah, it's I've had more than a few people that I thought, oh my God, that DNA needs to be checked. Are you sure you're not Neanderthal? But yes, human diversity or diversity in characteristics of any species is going to be it's an evolutionary process. It's why deer look differently in certain areas and whatever. It's how evolution occurs. It's whatever advantage having that gives a species for survival. And so there's no reason to think that a dog man and a Bigfoot and all these little individual, it's like a skunk ape and all these different names they give things. They're just a variety of the same species that in that habitat in Florida, they can be a little smaller and thinner because that's the height of the tree that they're growing to for protection. California are probably a little bigger because we have bigger trees and bigger environments. And that's just a normal evolutionary process.
Yeah, because of the environment.
Correct. Environmental.
A loved one of ours, when he was a little boy, witnessed something reaching through his window as a hairy hand and believes it was the ruggaroo, since his family lived in Louisiana and he's from Louisiana. Well, he's from Burbank, but his parents are from Louisiana, and they take the ruggaroo very seriously.
Yes, they do.
And it's a very aggressive Bigfoot-like creature that's not friendly like the forest people up in Oregon and Washington, or as grumpy as the skunk apes. These different locales, these different locations with different kinds of Bigfoot populations make sense. They have different personality traits.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, I have 2 dogs. I used to have more dogs, but unfortunately I'm down to my 2. We have one that is the sweetest princess of all sweetness, loves you with all her heart, would never do anything at all. And we got Mr. Grumpy Bear, I don't think she'd come on camera for me, who will soon bite you rather than love on you, and it's personalities. If dogs can have personalities, cats have personalities, everything has a personality. And
yeah, it's like you want to leave the ruggaroos alone.
And it's based maybe on what their resource pressures are. I mean, I might be pretty grumpy if I'm in competition for food resources and being a little more aggressive. I mean, it's based on a whole lot of factors that come in, and Native Americans have always recognized that. Here in Sonora, the Miwok that I deal with have 17 different names for Bigfoot, and the names are based on personalities. That one was grumpy. Oh, that one was nice. Oh, yeah, that one. And they have a Yayali is their traditional overall name, but they would name them based on what their personality types were like. And so I'm sure that's more widespread than even I know to be, but there's tribes who consider Bigfoot to be a blessing to their tribe, and there are tribes that say, oh God, ooh, no, we don't want anything to do with that because it was never a good interaction. Whenever we interacted with them, something bad happened.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy, for being a part of After Hours and for being my personal Obi-Wan Kenobi. Your Bigfoot knowledge is valuable.
Phenomenal.
Thank you.
Wah, wah, wah. This is some good shit. We're professionals.
Yeah, we've only been doing this for 2 years.